I tried to explain for hours, every tiny detail of my fears and insecurities. But his eyes remained blank, and the only answer I got was a soulless nod and a hollow "I understand you." I knew he didn't understand. I felt lonelier than ever, as if I was talking to a wall. Sarah recounted, her voice choked with emotion. She had experienced countless such conversations, where she tried to open up, but only received indifference or empty reassurances. The feeling of not being understood, not being accepted, had built a strong defensive wall in her soul. In life, we often yearn to be understood, to be heard. But sometimes, words become meaningless, and true understanding comes from a place beyond words. There are people who never say, "I understand you." Yet in their presence, you feel no need to defend yourself, no need to explain, no need to prove anything. It's a special kind of presence, a deep connection that transcends language. Could this be a manifestation of unconditional loving kindness, a boundless compassion that needs no verbal expression? Let's explore the power of unspoken presence and how it can heal the deepest wounds within our souls. Elias was a talented architect who always lived in a state of high alert. From a young age, he learned that the world was full of judgment and expectations. His parents, who always set high standards, constantly criticized his smallest mistakes, whether in academics or relationships. This led Elias to develop a strong defense mechanism. He always strived for perfection, always hid his weaknesses, and rarely shared his true feelings for fear of being judged or exploited. He had been in many relationships, both friendships and romantic, but always felt a deep loneliness, an invisible wall separating him from everyone. He longed to be understood, but didn't believe it could happen without judgment or conditions. One day, Elias met Maya, a ceramic artist. Maya was a quiet, reserved woman. She never offered unsolicited advice, never tried to change Elias, and never uttered platitudes like, "I understand you." Instead, Maya simply was present. When Elias visited her studio, he could sit for hours just watching her work or simply in silence. Maya didn't ask many questions, but her eyes were always warm and accepting. She didn't judge when Elias spoke of his failures, his hidden fears that he had never dared to share with anyone. She just listened, sometimes nodding gently, and continued her work. There was no pressure to explain, no need to prove himself. With Maya, Elias felt an unusual peace. He realized that, for the first time in his life, he didn't need to defend himself. He could be himself, with all his flaws and vulnerabilities, without fear of rejection or judgment. Maya's unspoken presence created a safe space where Elias could gradually let go of the defensive walls he had built over the years. He began to understand that true understanding doesn't necessarily come from words, but can come from an open heart and a non-judgmental soul. Elias and Maya's story touches upon a profound aspect of human relationships, the need to be understood and accepted without having to explain or defend oneself. In a noisy world, where everyone seems quick to offer opinions and judgments, finding a safe space where we can truly be ourselves is invaluable. The feeling of not needing to defend oneself is not just psychological comfort, but a state of liberation, where the burdens of insecurity and fear of rejection are released. This hints at an ancient wisdom, a compassion that transcends ordinary expressions, an unconditional loving kindness, capable of healing and deep connection without the need for language. We will explore how Buddhist teachings illuminate this phenomenon, helping us understand the nature of unspoken presence and how to cultivate it in our lives. A Buddhist perspective, Elias and Maya's story clearly illustrates the power of Metta, loving kindness, unconditional, non-discriminating, non-expectant compassion. Maya's presence was not an intellectual or verbal understanding, but an understanding from the heart, a complete acceptance. This relates to core Buddhist concepts such as Anatta, non-self, The absence of a fixed self, sunyata, emptiness. The emptiness of all phenomena, and Sati, mindfulness, awareness in every moment. Applying the Four Noble Truths to this situation. Dukkha, suffering. Elias's suffering was loneliness, feeling misunderstood, and the exhaustion of constantly defending and hiding himself. This suffering arose from attachment to a perfect self-image and the fear of judgment. This suffering also stemmed from not finding genuine connection. Samadaya, origin of suffering. The cause of suffering is ta, craving. The craving to be understood in a specific way through words, recognition, and upadana, attachment. Attachment to the self, to preconceived notions about oneself and others. Elias was attached to being perfect to be accepted and feared judgment from others. Nirodha, cessation of suffering. Suffering can cease when we let go of attachment to expectations about how others should understand us, and let go of defensiveness. When we realize the non-self nature and emptiness of all phenomena, we can find peace. Magga, path to the cessation of suffering. The path leading to the cessation of suffering is the Eightfold Path, which helps us develop wisdom to correctly perceive the nature of the problem and act mindfully, especially by cultivating unconditional loving-kindness. The Eightfold Path to develop unspoken presence and unconditional loving-kindness. Right view. Correct understanding. That true understanding does not necessarily come from words or agreement. Understanding that everyone is experiencing suffering and has their own defense mechanisms. For Elias, right view is realizing that Maya's acceptance needed no words, and that he didn't need to hide himself. For us, right view is seeing the non-self nature of all phenomena and not clinging to definitions or expectations. Right intention. Developing the intention to abandon craving, aversion, and delusion. Moving towards compassion, non-judgment, and wishing happiness for others without expecting anything in return. Maya demonstrated this right intention through her unspoken presence. Right speech. Speaking truthfully, kindly, and non-divisively. In this case, right speech is not just what we say, but also meaningful silence, non-judgmental, creating space for others. Maya practiced right speech by not speaking empty words, but instead through accepting silence. Right action, acting non-harmfully and selflessly, helping others without expecting anything in return. Maya's action was creating a safe space where Elias could be himself, without judgment or imposition. Right livelihood, living a righteous life, not harming others. Ensuring that work and relationships are not dominated by selfish motives or attachment. Right effort, continuously striving to eliminate unwholesome states of mind, like judgment, attachment to words, and develop wholesome ones, like compassion, acceptance. Elias needed to strive to let go of his defensiveness, and we need to strive to develop the ability of unspoken presence. Right mindfulness, always being aware of what is happening in the present moment, both internally and externally. Observing one's emotions and thoughts without judgment. Maya demonstrated mindfulness through her aware presence, allowing Elias to feel safe. We can practice mindfulness to listen to others genuinely, non-judgmentally, and recognize when we are trying to control or impose. Right concentration. Focusing the mind on a single object to achieve tranquility and wisdom. Through meditation, we can develop the ability of deep presence, not being distracted by thoughts or judgments, thereby cultivating unconditional loving-kindness. To create a space where others feel no need to defend themselves, and to experience that liberation ourselves, we need to cultivate unspoken presence and unconditional loving-kindness. This requires continuous practice. 1. Deep listening. Not just hearing what others say, but also sensing what they don't say. Listen with your whole heart, non-judgmentally, without interrupting, without offering advice unless asked. Create space for others to be themselves. 2. Practice mindfulness. Always be aware of your presence in every moment. When with others, truly be there, not distracted by your phone or your own thoughts. Your mindful presence can create a safe space for others. 3. Let go of judgment. Recognize that everyone has their own journey and suffering. Avoid making judgments or preconceived notions. When we let go of judgment, we open our hearts to accept others unconditionally. 4. Cultivate metta. Practice loving-kindness meditation, directing good wishes to yourself and those around you, without discrimination. This helps expand the heart and create an accepting, safe energy. 5. Accept Anatta. Understand that there is no fixed, perfect self. When we let go of attachment to self-image, we also let go of the need to defend or prove ourselves. This allows us to be more authentic and vulnerable, yet also stronger. 6. Create safe space. Sometimes, the greatest help we can offer is simply to be present, without imposing, without expecting. Be a safe space for others, where they can breathe, where they can be themselves without fear. In this busy and stressful life, have you ever truly found a place, a person, in whose presence you don't need to defend yourself, don't need to explain, don't need to prove anything? And if not, are you willing to open your heart, let go of your defensive walls, to embrace a deep, unspoken connection, an unconditional loving kindness that can heal the deepest wounds within your soul? Let's practice unspoken presence and cultivate unconditional loving kindness in our relationships. Share this story if it touches your heart, and leave a comment about how you've experienced unspoken understanding. Remember, sometimes your presence is the greatest gift. Namaste.